It's simply more of the same during the next 24 hours. If you've seen a lot of low cloud this week so far, you're going to see more again during the next 24 to 48 hours as high pressure simply sits where it is. It's not moving anywhere for the time being. And within that high pressure, we've got a lot of trapped low cloud, unable to break up, unable to shift. So it's just going to sit in the same places. A few exceptions, however. It is being broken up over some of the more rugged terrain, so parts of West Wales into the southwest, and more especially parts of Northern England and Scotland, seeing a few cloud breaks overnight. When we get that, it will be a chilly start to the day. Temperatures dipping to 3, 4, 5 Celsius across, say, sheltered parts of the Grampians, where we've got those clear skies overnight. Northern Scotland, at least the far north, especially Orkney, seeing some light showers from the word go, 1 or 2 showers just fringing upon the Western Isles as well. Otherwise, it's a dry start for most, but we do have these showers to mention as well for East Anglia and Kent. But inland, plenty of fine weather, settled, yes, under that area of high pressure, but that low cloud still with us throughout the day in most places. But like I say, there are a few exceptions. Western fringes, as well as parts of central Scotland, likely to see the best of any brighter spells through Thursday afternoon. Temperatures very similar to the last few days, 13 to 16 Celsius. Friday morning, more of the same once again, with a few light showers for the north of Scotland, 1 or 2 into East Anglia and the south of England. Perhaps the cloud developing more holes in the south towards the end of the afternoon. And actually, Saturday's looking marginally brighter. Still a lot of cloud, but perhaps a better chance of some sunshine. That is before more unsettled weather returns.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. In Surrey, the M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 7 and 6 is affected by an accident causing lane closures. The M5 in Devon, northbound entry slip at junction 30, is closed for road management. M9 westbound near Keir roundabout requires caution due to a broken down vehicle. In Derbyshire, the A38 southbound faces half-an-hour delays between the A50 and junction A5 132. And on the trains, cross-country services are disrupted between Birmingham New Street and Derby, and East Midlands Railway experiences disruption at Manchester-Oxford Road. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's just 3 weeks left to see how you could be our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dawdley, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Tonight we have a UK exclusive interview with Eric Trump, whose first book was published yesterday, and it talks about the siege his father and the whole family lived under for those 4 years out of office and how they came back to triumph. And hey, what a week for the Trump family it's been. A new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, she says that we're facing a crisis with illegal immigration in this country that is eroding trust in politics. Who knew? Let's see whether she can make a difference. And Rachel Reeves is over in Washington, D.C., hinting that the budget will contain spending cuts and tax hikes. Just how much trouble is the UK economy actually in? But before all of that and more, let's get the news with Sam Francis.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. Just after 7 o'clock. Well, breaking tonight, Hamas has said it will hand over the bodies of 2 more hostages to Israel tonight. That's at 10 o'clock local time. It comes after Israel has claimed one of the 4 bodies already returned doesn't match any of the known hostages. The remains were transferred by the Red Cross to the IDF overnight, part of efforts to recover all 28 captives confirmed dead. It also follows the release of 20 living hostages earlier this week, as Israel is now tightening restrictions on aid into Gaza. Meanwhile, in Washington, Donald Trump is warning Hamas it could be forcibly disarmed if it refuses to lay down its weapons. The Prime Minister says the government will publish the witness statements it submitted in the collapsed China spy case. 2 men, Christopher Cash and Christopher Berry, were charged under the Official Secrets Act last year, but the case was dropped last month. Both insist they're innocent. The Crown Prosecution Service said it couldn't get key evidence from the government, including documents referring to China as a national security threat. Well, Sir Keir Starmer insists officials were not directed or influenced before giving evidence.
I'm deeply disappointed by the outcome. We wanted to see prosecutions. Mr. Speaker, I know just how seriously, rightly, that you take these matters. National security will always be the first priority of this government, and after legal advice, I have decided to publish the witness statement. Given the information contained, we will conduct a short process, but I want to make clear I intend to publish the witness statements in full.
Responding to those comments in the Commons, though, the Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch said earlier that the government's response stinks of a cover-up.
On Monday, the Security Minister repeatedly told the House that ministers did not take decisions, that it was the Deputy National Security Advisor who had full freedom. Is the government seriously saying that only one man, the Deputy National Security Advisor, had anything to do with this failure? Is he seriously saying that the Deputy did not discuss with the National Security Advisor, did not discuss with the Home Secretary or with anyone in Downing Street? Is the Prime Minister seriously saying that?
Yes.
In other news, a misconduct hearing for a Metropolitan Police firearms officer who shot dead Jermaine Baker during a foiled prison break nearly a decade ago has been dismissed today. The officer, known as Whiskey 80, fired the fatal shot in 2015 as police stopped a plot to free prisoners outside Wood Green Crown Court. A public inquiry in 2022 had already found Mr Baker was lawfully killed, though he was unarmed when shot. The misconduct panel today ruled there was no case to answer, ending what the Met Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley called a decade of legal madness.
The system itself, the regulations which hold police to account, do not have the right balance. As I say, they're exploited too often by criminals and their legal teams to undermine police officers' confidence. And we need a system which looks fairly at split-second decisions taken by officers in the most difficult operational moments.
And Chancellor Rachel Reeves says she is considering tax rises and spending cuts to plug a now estimated £50 billion hole in the nation's finances.
Of course, we're looking at further measures on tax and spending to make sure that the public finances always add up.
She'll set out her plans in the budget on the 26th of November, admitting the UK's productivity has been, she says, consistently overestimated by the fiscal watchdog. Ms Reeves says sluggish growth, stubborn inflation and soaring debt costs have left little room to manoeuvre. She's also blamed the economic strain on Brexit, austerity and Liz Truss's so-called mini-budget. Those are the 7 o'clock headlines. More in an hour.
Good evening. The new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has said that we've lost control of our borders and that is eroding public trust in confidence. Goodness gracious me. She also says the only way we can solve it is through international cooperation. She does, though, go on to criticise some elements of the European Convention on Human Rights. But my take on this, we've heard it all before. Every single Home Secretary says we need international cooperation. Every single Home Secretary joins in with the vast majority view of the country. Yes, we understand how you feel. We get it. But is any of this going to make any difference? Well, let me ask you at home. Does Shabana Mahmood inspire your confidence? Farage at GBNews.com, because she certainly doesn't mine. Jeff, it's just the same old stuff, isn't it? It's the same old stuff again and again. They're not quite using Smash the Gangs as much as they are. But there's no change, is there?
I think she's brought a new focus to this issue. She's only been in the job for a short time.
Fair point.
There are a number of measures that actually were already in process before she got the job. And I'm pretty confident that she really means what she says. She's understood that this issue has gone deeply into the British psyche and people want action. So I think she recognises the problems she faces. She's got to sort this out.
But you know but every time we rely on international cooperation, it doesn't bloomin' work. You know, we thought we had a deal with Albania, only for Eddie Rama to say, their Prime Minister, to say no. We had the Prime Minister, standing up at a press conference. For the first time, we have a one-in, one-out policy. Well, since that came in, it's 11,000 in and 26 out. There is nothing fresh in what she has to say. And surely isn't the answer not international cooperation, but actually gripping it ourselves?
Well, I think it's both. There's no doubt that we have to take action, but equally we have to work with the French in particular, because that is the shortest distance by boat into the United Kingdom. And it's obvious that we have to work with the French authorities in the way that we have done. And bear in mind, this government has done far more than previous governments did to get the French to recognise that they have a problem as much as we do.
But the numbers are going up still.
So look, what I was going to say was we have heard it before. I remember, and many of your viewers will remember, when, John Reid became Home Secretary. And the first thing he said was, it's not fit for purpose. And she's doing a version of that.
That was the whole Home Office, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But she's doing a version of that, which a clever politician does. I've inherited a complete mess. This was terrible. So if there's any uplift, she will obviously claim the credit for that. I saw a kind of very skillful politician at work there. Having said that, she talks about international cooperation. We did that with the French. We've given them, what, 800 million?
Yep.
Over the last 10 years.
Yep.
This government, I think, is continuing giving them money.
But the French have changed their rules in order to take more effective action on the beaches of northern France.
Jeff, I'd say ish. You know, we have seen some videos of boats being slashed. Equally, we've also seen, examples of where literally a couple of hundred yards from the shore, the French Navy literally escort them all the way to our 12-mile line.
But let's be fair. I mean, she's new in post, and Jeff and I have been in cabinet positions, and let's just see what happens. I mean, I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, but having seen what I've seen of the government and having heard, been around politics 20 years, I'm not convinced that things will change.
Now, over the weekend, a very interesting thing happened. There was a merchant ship that left France, and they discovered they'd left a French port, and they discovered 2 stowaways on board. They'd got themselves in the engine room, and they were basically opening the hatch and coughing and spluttering from, I think, carbon monoxide poisoning nearly. They were discovered off Ramsgate, 2 stowaways. Do you know what happened? They were taken straight back to France.
That's good.
Despite the fact they were in UK waters, why can't we extend that to everyone that crosses the channel?
No, that makes sense. I mean, but in a way, they're trying to do that with the one in, one out. It's a version of, getting people back. But it's not working, as you've said.
Well, the numbers the numbers are pitiful. I mean, the point is, Jeff, the French have a massive problem already. I think the EU got this wrong in 2015 by saying if you cross the Med, you can stay, and the burden on Sweden, on Germany, on France has been enormous. But at the end of the day, they're not really going to help us, are they?
Well, one aspect of international cooperation that we lost as a result of Brexit was the Dublin Convention. That would have
our old friend, the Dublin Convention.
Well,
Jeff,
it made a big difference.
You're quite right, it did. We had to take in more than we sent back.
Well, that's not true.
If you look at the figures for 2018 and 19, that is true.
But one of the key benefits of the Dublin Convention was that it stopped multiple applications. And someone, for example, in Sweden, who had been turned down by the Swedish government, could not then reapply in the United Kingdom. And that now happens. Many of those people sitting in tents in the camps in northern France have previously been rejected elsewhere. So the Dublin Convention would at least have prevented that magnet to the UK, which says that they can have another go at getting asylum.
The theory was great, but in practice it didn't work.
Because, as you said, in those 2 years, there were more coming in than we certainly got returned. But look, the main thing, what this government is doing, and I can see it now, is, we're nearly, 18 months in, things aren't going well. So what governments always do is they blame everybody. So, you can blame Brexit, they'll blame me and the mini-budget, they'll blame you for Brexit, they'll blame absolutely everybody. Yeah. And they will say, they won't actually be able to put their hands up and say, look, we got some of this wrong, which is what everyone can see. And with Shabana Mahmood, she's a new face.
Is she a different kind of politician, I suppose? I guess that's our question here.
I think she, looking at the Labour benches, I think she's one of the more capable people in their government. Now, you can say, well...
Is that a sort of backhanded?
You can say they're no good. I'm just saying, and I knew them in Parliament, I once saw them, we debated with them. I think she's a different... slightly better calibre than the average.
Your thoughts, Jeff?
Well, the other aspect of cooperation with our neighbours on the continent is that they face exactly the same problems. They face the same problem in Greece, in Italy, in Portugal and in Spain. And one of the difficulties of Brexit now is that when those countries get together to discuss this issue, we're not in the room.
Good.
But we're not in the room, and therefore we can't participate in the initiatives that are being taken.
That we engage with.
Do you understand how much Angela Merkel influenced the Brexit vote in this country? When she said,
that was huge.
Come everybody.
That was huge.
And one of the reasons people voted Brexit was to say, right, they've made an absolute mess of this. We want nothing to do with it. And the fact that British governments have allowed people illegally to come to Britain to be put up in four-star hotels.
I have to say, Nigel, I campaigned hard during the Brexit referendum. Angela Merkel didn't come up once on the street.
But the Syrian refugees, but Nigel's right, the Syrian refugees was a big deal.
It was.
I mean, I was campaigning, obviously, against your view. I was campaigning for Brexit in my constituency, and it did come up. The fact that there were 3 million Syrian refugees in 2015, and Germany took a third of them, and it just so happened that Germany was a third of the EU economy. That wasn't a coincidence, in my view. But the fact that they took a third of them and took 1 million did actually resonate with many voters.
The Germans did that for their own domestic economic reasons. There was a labour shortage. They wanted to increase.
And it's been a disaster. It's been a social disaster.
It's been a disaster.
Well, I'm not defending the decision, but what I'm saying is that this was not illegal immigration along the lines that we've just been discussing. This was something that the government in Germany supported and advocated.
I think it was widely regarded as a mistake, but during the course of that campaign, it was something that did come up.
No, I believe it did. Well, we'll find out, folks. We will find out whether this is a different kind of Home Secretary or whether she's just saying the same things that have been said by all the previous ones, albeit with a slightly different twist. I suspect Kwasi is right. I suspect she is actually rather more capable, perhaps, than some other ministers we've seen over the course of the last 15 or 16 months, but I just don't see anything here that is going to change. In a moment, Rachel Reeves is over in Washington, D.C., and of course, she's talking about the budget, her fiscal rules, which are the bedrock for growth and investment. In a minute, we'll have a think about the budget. Is she really going to put up tax and cut spending at the same time?
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, DC.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I asked you, does Shabama Mahmood inspire confidence in you? Tim says absolutely no confidence. Labour hold a working majority of 166. They have the power to pass laws denying illegal immigrants any access to benefits and ending all legal aid for those challenging their asylum cases. Instead, they choose to call for international cooperation. And Alex says, compared to many of the other Labour ministers we've seen since they won the election, I think she's by far the most inspiring and certainly talks tough on migration. Well, that is absolutely true. She does talk tough. She does appear to be quite competent. Will she deliver? And I just personally don't think the government, frankly, has the tools to do it. Now, Rachel Reeves is over in Washington. Here she was talking to the British press earlier on today.
Well, we've got a budget on the 26th of November, and I've always been very clear that we will continue to prioritise economic and fiscal stability in the UK because that is so important for renewal and investment. And so as we get the forecast and as we develop our plans, of course, we're looking at further measures on tax and spending to make sure that the public finances always add up.
Now, as Jeff Hoon joked during the break, amazing, isn't it? A Chancellor talking about a budget and tax and spend, which of course we do expect. Sure. But the figures aren't very pretty, are they? Inflation much more persistent, I think, than anybody, especially food inflation, which really hits people in their pockets. Our 10 and 30-year government bond gilt rates higher than virtually everybody. Growth per capita, very, very weak.
Oh, the second highest growth in the G7 after the United States.
Not per capita.
Well, but it's still growth,
something.
and that's what the government have staked a lot of their economic policy on, quite rightly.
Mass migration, huge migration, ups the GDP, but it doesn't up GDP per capita, is the point I'm making.
Right, well, I accept that. But the reality is that she's got to deal with the present situation, and she's talked about the need for raising taxes. She's talked about the need to lower public spending. If Kwasi will forgive me, every Chancellor has to do that. But nevertheless, this is a vital point in Labour's period in office, and she's got to get this right.
So, do you know, one thing I think, there's one word here that I think sums up the difficulties that she's got, and I think it's confidence. I think business confidence is very, very weak. We talk about investment into Britain. You know, Blackstone buying up vast housing estates isn't really investment into Britain. You know, our genuine investment is low, business confidence is poor. Isn't that the fundamental problem they've got? That she and Starmer don't inspire economic confidence?
Well, Nigel, I'm afraid it's back to Brexit as far as I'm concerned, because one of the points she made was that the British economy continues to suffer from the effects of Brexit. And in 2018, the Conservative government said that could be as much as 8% of our GDP.
Oh, but surely higher than that. I mean, come on, this is nonsense, isn't it?
Most economists are now talking about 4%.
Oh, honestly.
Now, 4%...
So without Brexit, we'd be the richest country in the world, would we?
4% year on year is equal, to something like £32 billion of government revenue.
Are you suggesting that without Brexit, we would have the highest economic growth?
No, I didn't say that at all. I said that the country is suffering. What's interesting about the £32 billion figure, which is, again, a reasonable estimate made by a number of economists, that would fill the gap in her spending plans.
So what
that would allow us not to be in this crisis.
Why is the French economy in such a mess?
So they came in 24 July, and they said there was a 22 billion black hole. That was the number. And we contested that. But even if you give that to them, the black hole this year is far worse than the one they said they'd inherited. And in the meantime, she had a budget in last autumn where she raised 40 billion in taxes. And that was designed to fill the black hole that there was then. That black hole has got bigger, mainly because, two reasons. One, the Labour Party wouldn't allow, the Labour MPs wouldn't allow her to reduce spending on welfare, and the government gave in. And the second is that growth figures have been revised downwards. So a lot of the black hole, the despair, the figures they have to fill in are things that have happened this year. And they've happened on the back of policies, tax-raising policies, which many of us were saying would have this effect. So the idea that they're going to go back to a vote that happened in 2016 and blame everything on that is ridiculous.
But you're a former Chancellor. The estimate by renowned economists and by the OBR is that each year this country is suffering a 4% loss of GDP as a result of Brexit.
Those figures
and
are contestable.
That problem is not going back to 2016.
4%
that problem
of GDP,
is since we actually left
4% of GDP is an absolutely ludicrous figure. It is a ludicrous figure.
Why?
Because you're effectively saying that if we hadn't had Brexit, our growth would be way better than the Americans, way better than everybody. That's nonsense.
And we're in the same.
And can I remind you that last July, 2 weeks after he was elected, and Reeves was in place as Chancellor, when Starmer was asked about Brexit, about economic costs versus opportunities, because whatever you do in life, there's an up and down depending how you play the game. He said that Britain's deep-rooted economic problems predated Brexit.
Which is true.
And suddenly a year on, they're blaming Brexit.
I'm not arguing that. What I'm saying is, clearly there were deep-rooted problems of productivity in this country, and that goes back a long, long way.
Yeah.
But what I am saying is that 4% difference would have meant that when the Chancellor stands up in Parliament to give her budget, she would not face the kind of hole in the finances that all the current commentators are talking about.
Kwasi, deal with this ludicrous 4% figure.
So why is it ludicrous?
It's of a magnitude that is totally extraordinary. Are there inconveniences in dealing with Europe now that weren't there before?
So
yes. Are there potential opportunities
the way I would
with the rest of the world that weren't
the
weren't
way
there
I would
before?
deal
Yes.
with it is if you look at the two biggest economies in Europe, in the Eurozone, France and Germany, have they dramatically outperformed us? Of course they haven't. Our growth is probably better over the last 10 years than either of those two countries.
Certainly
so
not true.
for you to be
Certainly
right,
not true of Germany.
for you to be
Absolutely
right,
not
well,
true
they've been
of
in recession and we haven't. They've had a recession more recently than we have. And for you to be right, for us to be, we would be growing much faster than either of these two countries. If the 4% figure is right, we would be growing, even though we'd be in the EU and they're in the EU, we'd be growing much faster than them, which doesn't make any sense
Before
whatsoever.
he stood down as Governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney said that prior to Brexit, our economies were something like 90% of the German economy. After Brexit, it went down to 70%.
Look at the figures. They've been in
we
recession.
are falling behind.
Well, that was because of a currency revaluation as much as anything else.
So you just look at what's going on in France, and you look at what's going on in Germany, and even in Italy. That's the third biggest Eurozone economy. You look at how they've been performed over the last 5-10 years, and it's very, very unimpressive. And if you were broader and you're sensible, but if you look at the EU globally, compare it to global players, growth, the lack of growth, is a massive problem. I speak to American investors, I speak to investors in the Far East. Europe is a massive problem.
But the difference, Kwasi, is that those continental countries in the EU have a bigger market. Therefore, the effect of any recession, the effect of any downturn in business is spread much more thinly.
Isn't the real market?
Whereas we've been sold this idea by people like Nigel and you, Kwasi. We've been sold the idea that somehow there's some golden opportunity out there in the world.
There is if we're prepared to take it. There is if we're prepared to take it. You look at the EU.
I would blame this lot for not taking advantage of the things we could have done. But I mean, it's worth remembering that in global terms, the EU market is a little backyard, diminishing every year in size.
Every year.
What is it? Global economy, less than 15% now.
Probably about
of the global
60-70%,
economy.
something
So the Brexiteer argument always was the real big growth is happening outside of Europe.
I mean, you look at the EU has got...
But, one of the figures that I recall the Brexiteers arguing was our trade with South Korea. It's about 1% of our total trade. And it could double. It would not make the slightest difference.
But our trade with America is 20%.
We have companies in this country, and I worked for one of them for a while, who are struggling to sell onto the continent because of the bureaucracy that's now involved, because of all the difficulties of accessing continental markets. And they are not expanding.
So our biggest trade partner is the US, and we just negotiated a deal.
Our one
which
country, but our biggest trade partner, come on, Kwasi, our biggest trade partner is the EU.
Your government...
40% of trade is with the EU.
The biggest country is America.
Yeah, that's true. But even your government has said that if we had been in the EU, we'd be facing 15% tariffs as opposed to the 10% that we negotiated. That was a clear win, which even the Prime
trade
Minister
deal with
acknowledged.
India. I mean, oddly, Starmer actually has benefited from Brexit in terms of the ability to do trade deals.
Yeah.
One last thought on this, Jeff. Is dragging it back to Brexit a political mistake for Labour?
No, it's not, because actually the opinion polls now are demonstrating, the last one I saw was that 62% of the population believe that Brexit was a serious mistake for the United Kingdom. Now, whether politically it is possible to take advantage of that change in public mood is another matter.
But clearly, can I just say, it's easy to explain what's happened. They came in, they blamed the Tories, that didn't work, their polls have sunk. And now they're trying to blame Brexit and finger reform for that.
I think it's a question of blaming.
No, of course it is.
Brexit.
Of course it is. It's blaming. It's blaming. You've come in, things haven't worked out, so you look to everyone else to blame, apart from yourself. And that's what governments do. And that's it's so obvious that's what they're doing.
I think they're making a very big mistake, because if you look at those seats in the Midlands and the Red Wall, Labour can't afford to lose Brexit Labour voters, is the point I'd make to you.
Well, that is an issue, but equally, Labour has picked up an enormous number of votes amongst young professionals in the South and the South East. And there's a big change going on in the electorate. It's those people that I represented in those Red Wall seats have abandoned Labour quite a long time ago in large numbers. They came out to vote for the referendum and vote for Brexit. Sure. There's no particular clear evidence that they necessarily will go back to Labour.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, the fact that...
Whereas, and this is the risk that Labour faces, whereas Labour has picked up enormous support amongst young professionals. And if Labour is lacking confidence in relation to the EU and dealing with the effects of Brexit.
Yeah, but you win
and
some and you lose some.
Yeah,
And what is for certain, though, is there's a big demographic shift in how people are voting.
Yeah,
in this
that's
country.
true.
I'm going to draw stumps on that because we've debated Brexit for at least 10 years. In a moment, we're going to talk to Eric Trump about his book, and the timing of his book to be published yesterday in America is really quite remarkable.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you are searching for some holiday sunshine, I can recommend Portugal as one of the warmer and sunnier spots on Thursday. Drier in the Balearics following a wet start to the week, but the rain that has affected parts of Spain and the Balearics now moving through Sardinia, affecting parts of southern Italy into Greece as well. So very lively thunderstorms and some large rainfall amounts. Still some showers across Spain, otherwise mostly fine for Portugal. And the wet weather in Greece becomes more widespread into Croatia and Greece later on.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's simply more of the same during the next 24 hours. If you've seen a lot of low cloud this week so far, you're going to see more again during the next 24 to 48 hours as high pressure simply sits where it is. It's not moving anywhere for the time being. And within that high pressure, we've got a lot of trapped low cloud, unable to break up, unable to shift. So it's just going to sit in the same places. A few exceptions, however. It is being broken up over some of the more rugged terrain, so parts of West Wales into the southwest, and more especially parts of Northern England and Scotland, seeing a few cloud breaks overnight. When we get that, it will be a chilly start to the day. Temperatures dipping to 3, 4, 5 Celsius across, say, sheltered parts of the Grampians, where we've got those clear skies overnight. Northern Scotland, at least the far north, especially Orkney, seeing some light showers from the word go, 1 or 2 showers just fringing upon the Western Isles as well. Otherwise, it's a dry start for most, but we do have these showers to mention as well for East Anglia and Kent. But inland, plenty of fine weather, settled, yes, under that area of high pressure, but that low cloud still with us throughout the day in most places. But like I say, there are a few exceptions. Western fringes, as well as parts of central Scotland, likely to see the best of any brighter spells through Thursday afternoon. Temperatures very similar to the last few days, 13 to 16 Celsius. Friday morning, more of the same once again, with a few light showers for the north of Scotland, 1 or 2 into East Anglia and the south of England. Perhaps the cloud developing more holes in the south towards the end of the afternoon. And actually, Saturday's looking marginally brighter. Still a lot of cloud, but perhaps a better chance of some sunshine. That is before more unsettled weather returns on Sunday.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
It's Eric Trump's first book, and the timing, frankly, couldn't be better because it was published in America yesterday. It'll be coming out in the UK on the 6th of November. Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. And I'm very pleased that Eric joins me now, down the line from Florida. Eric, very good to see you. Great title of the book. Thank you. The one thing I remember in 2021, going to Mar-a-Lago, and these were pretty difficult, dark days You know, the election had gone the wrong way, the 6th of Jan, everything was happening, legal threats were piling up. And your father said to me, what would you do if you were me? I said, well, if I had lots of money, a lovely wife, loyal children, golf courses all over the world, I know what I'd do. What do you think made him decide to fight on and to go through the hell that most of the next 4 years was?
Well, Nigel, my father's built differently. I think we're built differently as a family. I mean, they came after us with everything they had. That's why it's called Under Siege, right? And by the way, the book just went to #1. It's the #1 book in all of America in every single category on Amazon. It's really incredible. But they went after us like absolutely crazy, right? They tried to impeach him 2 times. They made up the dirty dossier. They made up the whole Russia hoax. They took him off the ballot in Maine. They took him off the ballot in Colorado. They took him off of Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram. They weaponized every DA and every attorney general in this country against my father. They indicted him 91 times. They tried to have him canceled. They tried to have him debanked. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history for never doing a damn thing wrong. They raided my father's home. They raided Mar-a-Lago. They went through Melania's closet. They went through Barron's room. They leaked our tax returns. The IRS leaked all my father's tax returns. They leaked all my tax returns. They leaked all of our employees' tax returns. Nigel, they did everything they could. And when none of that worked, somebody tried to put a bullet in my father's head in Butler, Pennsylvania. They tried to kill him 2 months later in Palm Beach, Florida. They've done everything they could to try and bankrupt us, to try and take away our voice, to try and silence us, to try and gag order us, to try and impeach him, to try and embarrass him, to try and break up his family. And despite all of that, we won. We beat the mainstream media in the United States. We beat the establishment in the United States. And he created the greatest political movement in the history of this country. And that's what the book Under Siege is about. It's that fight. It's my fight as the guy who runs the Trump organization, runs a lot of great assets over where you are. You know Turnberry very well, and you know Trump International, Scotland, Aberdeen very well. You know a lot of the properties we have over there. It was my fight as the guy who was running the company that they were coming after every single day as a way to get to my father and our family while he was in the executive branch.
I mean, look, it is an incredible story. And it's a story of human resilience on an incredible scale. But what is it? Because at any point in that, if your father had said, you know what, I'm not going to run, I think all those legal cases would have fallen away, life would have returned to normal. What is it that made your father, and you guys, because you were all in this together, what is it that made you go on?
You know, Nigel, it would have been the easiest deal as a business guy. It would have been the easiest deal I've ever made. You know what? My father will step aside. We'll all step aside. We'll be a little bit more quiet. We'll kind of go off we'll fade into the distance. And you drop all the other nonsense. They would have made that deal like that. And honestly, we love America. We love this country. We love this world. Our leadership under Joe Biden was absolutely incompetent. He was an incompetent president. Our standing around the world was falling. We were losing faith. We were losing family. We were losing our Constitution. We were losing our freedom of speech, something that I know I'm watching what's happening over there, and you've been a vocal critic of it, but is seriously dangerous and incredibly worrisome. As a person who's had speech weaponized against them, I can say that the path that the UK is going down is a dangerous one, and I hate to see what's happening over there. You know, but we wanted to fight. We wanted to fight for the greatness of the greatest country anywhere in the world. You know, we need the Western world to be strong. You know this. As our greatest ally, you know this. We need America to be strong. We need the UK to be strong. Otherwise, there's mayhem in the world. And when I watch my father over there, when I watch him get Middle East peace, when I see him bring together 2 societies, 2 religions that have been fighting for 3,000 years, everything they did to us, the siege, everything that they put us through in that book that I wrote, it's now all worth it. It was the greatest political victory of modern times, and I could not be more proud of the guy.
No, well, as I said at the start, your timing's absolutely impeccable because this is the week of the extraordinary deal over in the Middle East. And we've had a British Prime Minister, laying claim, saying we contributed to all of this. But, as Marco Rubio made quite clear, actually recognising Palestine was in fact counterproductive to all of it. What's your take on the British position on all of this?
Nigel, honestly, I've grown up a lot in politics, and I realize I no longer have a position for other countries' leaders. You know, what I will say is my father spearheaded the greatest coalition of great people who came together and all in their own way somehow, gelled together to create world peace, right? Honestly, I think playing Monday morning quarterback is counterproductive. Obviously, my father led the way. Everybody knows that. I think, no, but honestly, when in recent times have we ever seen two sides of a conflict who both agree that the outcome of that conflict was good for humanity? You didn't see that in World War II where, Germany was coming out and saying, we're incredibly happy with how this whole thing ended up. Obviously, that never happened. You didn't see that with Japan. You didn't see that in World War I. You didn't see that in Korea. You didn't see that in Vietnam. I mean, here you literally, have both sides coming out and they're happy and they're praising my father every single day. And by the way, you've had in other conflicts as well. I mean, you saw what happened in India with Pakistan. They're both coming out and saying, Donald Trump got these settled. And so, for me, it's not my spot to kind of render opinion on other governments. But what I will say is the world is in a beautiful spot. I mean, the world is in a beautiful spot because universally, people are celebrating peace for the first time when most of these politicians, all they've ever wanted was war.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And I'm sure next year that your father will get the Nobel Peace Prize. But I must ask you, to finish off, Turnberry. You mentioned Turnberry earlier, and I remember last May being up there with you, and you've created this golf course that is now rated the #1 in Britain and Europe. Truly incredible course that has previously hosted some very great Open Championships. You've got the hotel, now fantastic hotel, but the Royal and Ancient, who decide the venues of the Open Championship, seem to be reluctant to give you the Open Championship. Are you going to get the Open to Turnberry, Eric? Come on, yes or no?
I think we will. I think we will in time, and we're ready, willing. Everybody knows Turnberry is the greatest course in Scotland. We have the other greatest course in Scotland in Aberdeen as well. I just finished a second course there, and everybody says it's top 5 in the world. It's spectacular. Nigel, you've seen that as well. But I really do think, I know many of the people over at the RNA, and they're wonderful people, and Turnberry deserves it, and the entire world knows that Turnberry deserves it, and all the players want to go back to Turnberry. They know it's the best course anywhere in the world. It's certainly the nicest hotel in the UK, and I think in due course, maybe a little bit of politics feather out a little bit. You know how that whole game works. But I think Turnberry deserves it. And honestly, I'll be ready, willing, and able to throw on the greatest, Open Championship the Royal and Ancient has ever seen when they come around. And I'm sure they will.
Fantastic. Eric, good luck with the book. I can't wait to buy it and to read it. And thank you for joining us here tonight on GB News.
Thanks, Nigel.
Terrific. Well, you got to say, chip off the old block.
Very similar.
The levels of confidence, the levels of belief, amazing. In a minute, we'll have a full debrief on that, and with my panel, we'll think about what he said, but we'll also discuss the motivations of big political leaders. Why on earth do they put themselves through some of this hell?
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the
because
failure is
you're
the failure is
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, Jeff Hoon, a lot to unpack there. What did you make of that?
I was struck by one thing he said about his father creating a movement, because I've spent a lot of time in the United States. I've lived there, I have family there, I've been to all 50 states, I've met members of Congress, and something has fundamentally changed with the MAGA movement, which is beyond party politics. So there are a lot of Republicans who are very unhappy. They don't say so because they will be challenged in primaries if they were to do so. But it's gone beyond conventional politics in the United States. And that's a really interesting development, which I frankly don't necessarily understand, because in a sense I grew up with Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats had some quite right-wing people in the South. The Republicans had liberals. That's all changed. And the US politics has now become incredibly polarized. And what I find interesting when I go to the United States these days is that you have to be very careful in conversation with people, because people are really entrenched in their views. There are those who are absolutely passionate about Donald Trump and his presidency. There are equally those who are equally angry and very, very upset.
I mean, whatever you think of Trump as a person, they did put him through hell, didn't they, in those 4 years? I mean, some of those legal cases that were taken against him, unprecedented in America. And you've been around big, great leaders. What do you think Trump's motivation is? Is it historical legacy? Is it a genuine belief he's the guy to turn America around? What do you know, and you've seen it with people like Blair, you've worked closely with under enormous pressure. What drives great leaders on?
I think Donald Trump is different, and I think his business background, I think his experience prior to running for the presidency makes him very different from someone like Tony Blair, who grew up as a politician. He was a lawyer, but nevertheless, essentially from an early age, he was a politician. And I think that is part of why this movement in the United States is different from the kind of politics that we're used to in the United Kingdom.
I think you made an excellent point. I mean, Tony Blair, how old was Tony Blair when he became an MP? 30? I mean, he would have been in his very early 30s. Donald Trump was 70 when he became president the first time. So it's a huge difference. I think what Eric said was very interesting, because he was a bit of a chip of the old block, you know, the greatest, the best, the way he spoke. I'd never met him. But I think the main thing he felt and that he conveyed was the fact that they came after him. And some people under that pressure will buckle.
Well, I mean, Eric himself wasn't just the
whole thing. And so I think in a way, the fact that they came after him the way they did actually boosted him, because his thinking was, I'm not going to give in to these guys, and I'm going to actually soldier on. And what was so catastrophic in terms of the Democrats was that the more they went after him, the more court cases there were, his poll ratings just kept going up. I mean, I remember at the beginning of the process, they said, oh, Ron DeSantis, you know, the Republican candidate, was going to get the nomination.
The governor of Florida.
The governor of Florida, exactly. But as they kept attacking him, Trump just got stronger and stronger. And it goes to what Jeff was saying about the polarization. So if it's polarized and 50-50, let's say, the more you attack one person, the more it beds in their support.
Now, Eric's, as I said, the timing of the book, astonishing. What do you make of the Gaza-Israel ceasefire?
Look, I think he was doing a victory lap perhaps a little prematurely. Obviously, it's great to be where we are. It's great that they've come together. But, you know, we've seen these sorts of, peace initiatives before. and every time we've gone back to square one. So I just want to see it bedded in for maybe a few more weeks, so that we can really genuinely.
Well, we're all praying for that. But then, Jeff, we saw those scenes of street executions taking place in Gaza yesterday.
Well, first of all, I think Donald Trump deserves enormous credit for using his power and influence and his determination to get a deal with the Israelis, because I don't think anyone else could have done that.
With Netanyahu in particular.
Right. With Netanyahu in particular. And therefore it follows that if there's to be a stage 2 and a stage 3 and a stage 4, that he's got to continue that pressure. And I think my slight concern, echoing the point that's just been made, is whether he will be engaged to the same extent and whether he can persuade Netanyahu and some fairly grim people behind Netanyahu that actually a two-state solution is the way forward, because I cannot see any other solution that's going to work. And therefore, President Trump has to be at the elbow of Prime Minister Netanyahu, making sure he takes the right decision.
But Jeff, I think what Jeff said about Trump having to be engaged with the process is 100% right. Yeah. I don't think he's ever going to go as far as a two-state solution. I don't think that's really on his agenda.
Well, not all the while Hamas are in control.
No, I mean, because we saw what happened yesterday. They seized control and then they executed these people. Yeah. On television, effectively, or on video. Yeah.
And one thing, and I've been to Gaza and I've spent a bit of time in Israel.
We both have.
What I think is not always clear, given the reporting of Hamas, is actually a large number of Palestinians want rid of Hamas. They are not as popular as they might have been at the time that they were elected.
That may be true. That may be true, but as we saw yesterday, they're
threatening and they're powerful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're
well, look, either way, whatever happens, it's been an amazing achievement thus far. Thus far, an amazing achievement. And as far as the Trumps are concerned, do you think it's going to be a family business that continues?
Well, I've been thinking who is going to be the next standard bearer for the family. You know, the Americans, even though they're a republic, they like their dynasties.
That's right. They fought against the original principle.
They don't like monarchy, but they have candidates.
Surely there's only going to be one candidate next time, and it's J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is already running for that nomination.
But there is talk of having a Trump as a VP.
I think Jeff's right. I think in J.D. Vance, Trump effectively picked a successor.
Yeah.
And you can agree with him, disagree with him.
But there's the number 2 spot, and
there is.
There will be talk of maybe having a Trump.
There is.
Whichever it might be.
And just before we go, quick thought on the Democrats. Where are they?
Well, the Democrats have got to get their act together. They have got to find a candidate who can stand up to J.D. Vance, because I'm sure Vance will be the nominee for the Republicans.
But do you think that, and you may well say that what Donald Trump's done with MAGA, he's taken the centre of gravity of the party to the right from where it was. No more country club Republicans and all the rest of it. But isn't the Democrats' danger they're being dragged a long way to the left? Just looking up, for example, their choice for mayoral candidate in New York.
I believe that actually the Democrats will go through a process of finding a candidate. The weakness of the candidate they chose before was that she wasn't really tested in a competition, whereas the primaries were the first thing that really fascinated me about US politics.
I agree.
And the way that a candidate emerges is after a long, difficult, arduous process.
That's right.
And that candidate then carries the
But just a couple of things. I mean,
but the point about left-right in the Democratic Party, ultimately they will choose a candidate who can beat the Republicans.
So I'm not sure they'll be able to do that. I think that party is totally split.
I think they're in trouble.
You know, even from the time of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, who they kind of looked at.
They're going to struggle.
I think it's going to be very difficult.
My huge thanks to my panel, my excellent panel. Now, in a moment, we have Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, who will be doing State of the Nation. He's going to talk to me now, down the barrel. Jacob, what have you got coming up this evening?
Down the barrel, about a few yards away, I'm going to be talking about the Royal Mail scandal, that you post a first-class letter, you'd spend a fortune doing it, and it doesn't get there, but it's worse than that. Because I've actually been round a few post boxes in South West 1, all of which have their last collection of the day at 9 o'clock in the morning. So unless you write your letters before breakfast, first class is going to be a minimum of 2 days, even to meet their target. So I think it's an absolute con that Ofcom hasn't got onto. even though they fined the Royal Mail £21 million.
Well, from Postman Pat to Postman Jacob, that's all coming up after the news. First, though, let's get the all-important weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's simply more of the same during the next 24 hours. If you've seen a lot of low cloud this week so far, you're going to see more again during the next 24 to 48 hours as high pressure simply sits where it is. It's not moving anywhere for the time being. And within that high pressure, we've got a lot of trapped low cloud, unable to break up, unable to shift. So it's just going to sit in the same places. A few exceptions, however. It is being broken up over some of the more rugged terrain, so parts of West Wales into the southwest, more especially parts of Northern England and Scotland, seeing a few cloud breaks overnight. When we get that, it will be a chilly start to the day, temperatures dipping to 3, 4, 5 Celsius across, say, sheltered parts of the Grampians, where we've got those clear skies overnight. Northern Scotland, at least the far north, especially Orkney, seeing some light showers from the word go, 1 or 2 showers just fringing upon the Western Isles as well. Otherwise, it's a dry start for most, but we do have these showers to mention as well for East Anglia and Kent. But inland, plenty of fine weather, settled, yes, under that area of high pressure, but that low cloud still with us throughout the day in most places. But like I say, there are a few exceptions. Western fringes, as well as parts of central Scotland, likely to see the best of any brighter spells through Thursday afternoon. Temperatures very similar to the last few days, 13 to 16 Celsius. Friday morning, more of the same once again, with a few light showers for the north of Scotland, 1 or 2 into East Anglia and the south of England. Perhaps the cloud developing more holes in the south towards the end of the afternoon. And actually, Saturday's looking marginally brighter. Still a lot of cloud, but perhaps a better chance of some sunshine. That is before more unsettled weather returns.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
There's just 3 weeks left to see how you could be our biggest winner this year. First, you could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxury vehicle comfortably sleeps 4, has its own fitted kitchen and bathroom areas, and comes complete with fitted awning and bicycle rack. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in